Okay, hi everyone. It's a real pleasure of mine to be able to speak to such a distinguished group. Like Angela said, my research focuses on eSports, which is kind of competitive gaming, and I'll go into a definition of that in a second. But I really wanted to try and use my 10 minutes today to highlight how the Air Force, and I think specifically a lot of the things Lyle brought up when he spoke, how we could maybe learn a few things from the research that is happening in eSports and the potential similarities in the computer-human mediated relationship that might be the next transition of work for a lot of people, as you mentioned, Lyle, in the military, but also how that's happening in eSports and what we can learn from that in a human performance context. So big difference that I want to kind of create here between eSports and video gaming. So there's a lot we can learn from both, but I'm kind of really focusing on eSports. And that's when you start playing video games in a competitive, organized way that provides personal or professional development to the player. So an easy way of understanding that is that all eSports are video games, but not all video games are eSport. And now I know a lot of you have heard me talk about this before, but I'm going to go over kind of what is actually happening when a person is playing eSports. And I think Lachlan in the back of my slide here is a really good example of that. He's playing League of Legends. He's one of our elite athletes. He's on scholarship to play at the second highest level of gaming competition here that we have in Australia. And what he's doing, it's much like us, he's sitting at a computer, he's using his left hand, as you can see on the keyboard there, and in eSports this varies, but to move a character or cast an ability or predict a movement that his opponent is about to make. And with his right hand, he's using his mouse. So what Lachlan has to do, if we look at a one-on-one situation, is he has to, with the combination of his left and right hand, move a character in an augmented world, in a battlefield that's online, predict his enemy's movement, find his enemies, cast his abilities, avoid his enemy abilities, all at the same time. And for a lot of eSports, the fine motor skills needed to do this is incredible. I'm talking 1 pixel to the left, 1 pixel to the right, and you lose, you've lost. And now that would be complicated enough, but what's actually happening when he's playing this game is he's coordinating with 4 other people on his team against 5 other people on the opponent's team that are all trying to do the same thing. So it's much more than just fine motor movement. Can I click on the enemy at the right time? It's can I do all of those things on a micro level? And do I have the teamwork, leadership, and communication skills to work with my 4 other teammates against 5 other teammates to overcome or achieve the objective? So it's different from chess, which eSports sometimes gets grouped in with as a mind game, in that when I move a chess piece forward, if I move the pawn forward, it doesn't matter if I kind of swivel the piece around, how quickly my hand moves it. As long as it gets to where it needs to go, that's what's important. In eSports, everything matters. When you move, how fast you move, and how you do that in conjunction with your 4 teammates against your 5 opponents. So for those that don't really understand kind of what's happening in eSports, you're controlling a third-person character, a third-party character in an augmented or virtual world to achieve these objectives in that way. So I hope that kind of illuminates it a little bit. And it's really big. So this is in Australia. This is Kudos Bank Arena down in Sydney. The players on screen, if you look really closely at your screen, you can see 5 players on either side, kind of separated by a partition. They're playing for 12,000 people in this stadium. I was there. And for 8 million people online. They were playing for about 260,000 Australian dollars. So it's here in Australia. It's really big. And in terms of a pressure sense, it's not life or death as certain things might be in the military, but it is a huge amount of pressure and a huge amount of pressure placed on the player by themselves, by the orgs, and obviously by the live screaming fans that are there that they can hear and feel. And that's what's happening in Australia, but it's absolutely dwarfed by what's happening overseas. So we've got eSports competitions where one competition is getting up near 200 million viewers. We've got prize pools for a competition or a season pushing 25 million, pushing 30 million US dollars. So that's a pretty good payday for a weekend's worth of work. So the pressure is really there. The stresses that these people are feeling in the competitive environment is really being created that's similar to sports. Background on the industry. The key things to note here, in 2020, we're pushing towards being a $1 billion industry. And if you look at the other side, on the right side of the screen, you'll see that we've got 500 million viewers. So we're really starting to rival traditional sports. Now, 60% of those 500 million viewers are estimated to be between the ages of 16 and 24. So it's a really young, emerging audience that are engaging in this new digital technological competition that's yet to be defined properly. And so there's a whole bunch of opportunities to engage that youth. Here's how esports is kind of disrupting traditional sport. You'll see that the League of Legends Worlds in the left graphic got 205 million viewers. Now that's nothing compared to 3.6 billion people who watched the Rio Olympics, but when you think that esports has only been around for 5 to 10 years and some of the other sports up here have got decades, if not centuries of cultural development behind them, the fact that we're even talking about an esport in the same breath is quite incredible. And then if you have a look specifically at the American market, you'll see that esports is already rivaling some of the major sports, sporting codes that they have in the US. So I was talking about Kim. Kim is the first professional, female professional Overwatch player in the league, and to buy a slot in the Overwatch League is about 30, can be as expensive as 30 million pounds. So this is a real profession. This is a real tournament, and Kim is performing and outperforming many of her male counterparts. And so what that highlights for us is that a biochemistry that doesn't allow for the same explosive output in gross motor movements might not have the same impact in esports as it does in traditional sport. We might not have to have separate competitions, or at least at the moment, we don't have to have separate competitions for male and female competitors. This could be an industry or a medium through which it's more about what's happening in your head and how you can articulate fine motor movement than more explosive gross motor movements. And that's at the top end. If we look down at the bottom end of performance, we have Rocky No Hands here. So that's his name. I didn't call him that. He is very popular online. He has about 60,000 followers. He had a terrible accident in college and he can't use his hands or his feet. He now streams to his 60,000 fans online and plays a very competitive level, not a professional level, but a very competitive level of esports using only his mouth. So you'll see that his mouth is on what would be the joystick of a PS4 or an Xbox controller, and that helps him look around. And then he has a series of 4 tubes connected to that joystick that are his buttons that Lachlan would be using with his left hand. So his move left, right, shoot, select gun, reload. That's what he does by blowing into a series of tubes. And there's a YouTube video that he's moving between those tubes and moving the mouse faster than you can blink. It's absolutely incredible to watch, but it's more incredible how esports has allowed Rocky to reinvent his personality, find his competence, and contribute to society in a way that he might not otherwise have been able to do. Less kind of relevant to the military probably is kind of COVID-19. So esports has been an avenue, while everyone's been locked at home, esports has been an avenue for connection, maintaining social connections, building competencies, engaging in kind of a recreational activity that otherwise wouldn't have been available before esports came out. So I think in a broad sense, there's a whole bunch of applicability for how we can use esports, video games more broadly, to inform, or if not change the way the military acts. So I could just go to the next slide. So my research, I've looked at competitive and professional esports athletes, and I've tried to understand what causes them stress. So what are the actual things causing them stress? How are they appraising that? How are they coping with it? How effective is it? And then how do personality factors like, say, mental toughness, how does that contribute to success in esports? And I won't drill down into exactly what we found, but the interesting thing here is that it was very similar to traditional sports and other high performance contexts, but not exactly the same, which means there is a bit in there that is unique to esports. And I would say if we look at kind of UAVs or computer human mediated relationships that happen in the military, certain types of operators, there would be a lot of the same performance principles, but there will probably be something that's unique. And so some of the questions that I'd like to explore in a military context is what is causing people in a computer mediated relationship in the military? What's causing them stress? How can we increase their performance? How are they coping with that stress? And how effective is all of that? And then how can some of the personality factors, the innate or the culturally developed personality factors, how can they impact the stress and coping process, but performance more broadly in a military setting? And build a profile of kind of what determines success for military personnel in computer mediated roles. It can help, this for me could help increase kind of how you recruit, how you train, and then how you improve and work with current people in computer mediated roles to increase their performance. So I think my 10 minutes is up, so I will stop talking. But yeah, welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Dylan.